I'm going to do a short lecture about the occult. My name is S. Rob, by the way. And the first question that we need to think about is, what is the occult? Well, first of all, the things we need to consider is occultism and religion. And this is that all religion is occultism. Yes, all religion is magical. You get some religions that will say and will even preach that, occultism is wrong, but they are all occult, all of them. But occultism isn't necessarily religion, okay? When you're thinking about religion, think about worshipping deities, altars, prayers, things like this, okay? Because the occult can be about worshipping, but it can also be about commanding, magic spells, also prayers and summonings. But the difference is, religions are about worshipping, okay? That's what religions are about at the heart. Worshipping an entity or entities, because you can't have one god or goddess or many, okay? You don't just have to have one god in a religion. It don't even have to be many people. However, occultism can have no gods. In fact, when you remove a religion from occultism, you have things that we sometimes call gods, but in actual fact what they are servitors. That means that something, say like Cattlebody with a battle crow goddess, as we would normally refer to her, is actually used as a servitor. We're not worshipping Cattlebody. When I use Cattlebody, we're not worshipping Cattlebody. We're using her as a servitor, okay? And the servitor, like I said, think of it like a little magical butler. That's what it is. It's something that does something to help you, okay? But don't think of them as non-intelligent. What we're talking about is entities with some degree of intelligence, their own personality, sometimes domains of power, things they can do, sometimes things that they're not as good at. That's what we're really talking about. But symbolism is used in both religions and occultism. So, say in religion, the crucifix could be thought of as being a talisman. But in the occultism, we don't just use magic spells and talismans, we also use psychic power, such as like astral projection, prediction of the past, future, even the present, how people feel, communicating with the dead, other beings, entities, things like that. Now, religion sometimes has things that you cannot pray for, things that you cannot get, You can't pray to get something which breaks a commandment. Well, you can, but it won't happen, because it can't happen, because it's outside of the rules. So you can't pray to, if you have a commandment that says, thou shalt not kill, you can't pray for someone to die, because it's outside of the rules. It won't happen, okay? It's outside of the rules of the game. However, occultism, an occultist can work magic for anything. And if we need to work magic with different servitors, we can do that, or work magic without servitors. This is important, because occultism should be compatible with every other type of occultism and religious belief, or lack thereof. Whereas religions are rarely compatible. You don't see many people with more than one religion, They just don't go together. They don't generally gel. Whereas occultists, we can be compatible with anything, and that also means people who don't believe in God. It's fine not to believe in God or goddesses, because we're actually using these entities and commanding them. It's also fine, you'll find it, to believe that they are simply ideas to empower your magic. Although what generally happens is, when you have more experience of these entities, you'll probably believe that they do exist, but it's fine anyway, okay? You don't believe in this or that, it's fine. You don't have to believe in any particular thing. You don't even have to believe in the power of magic. You just have to intend it to work. That's all you need. Because occultism at its centre is about the individual's power. And even when people use servitors, their power takes precedence over the servitor. By that I mean you are commanding the servitor. It is not commanding you. Okay? And that's the important thing to remember there. So your power is always what it's all about. It's about expanding your power. And the occult does empower people. And that has many benefits, some of which are unique to the individual, but always include empowerment and usually things like better strength and many other things as well. And this isn't when you're working magic for any particular thing. This is just if you're working magic, You'd still get the empowerment and these different increase of talents and things like that, which different people get. Another difference is religions have more rules. Although some types of occultism do have rules, the occult, as I define it, is a set of tools and does not make moral judgments. Because there's lots of rules in religions, You can do this, you can't do this, you're not allowed to do that. You should do this on a Sunday. Well, that's not really the occult. You know, you don't have to do anything anytime you don't want to. It's about you. This also brings me to a different classification, the paranormal. Because the paranormal is when strange things happen, such as time slips. When time slips occur momentarily or seem to, ghosts and many other things without apparent cause. Whereas the occult is making things such as this happen, you know, and other things occur. So that's a line that I draw, separating between the occult and the paranormal. Because the paranormal is when something happens, you know, which does mean, of course, that sometimes when the paranormal occurs, it was actually done by somebody else. It was made to happen, okay? But a lot of the paranormal is when things just occur. Because we've got magical beings, which is a good catch-all term for all these entities. And we've got this other realm of magic that occurs and that happens. And of course, you're going to have the paranormal as well. We're not the only ones there, so you're going to get stuff happening as well. But the occult also includes New Age, yoga, complementary medicine, as well as spell casting, talismans, sighting power, taking on the spirit of other animals or beings, and many other methods. And so the occult includes much more than you probably thought it does. You know, it includes all things that are magical within it. Like I said, and that includes, you know, complementary medicine, even hypnosis. You know, all the stuff it's spun off in recent years, yeah, or recent decades, I should say. You know, it includes all. I'm now going to talk a little bit about gods, goddesses, lower, orishas, and magical beings. Are they different or the same? Well, on the surface, it's quite a simple question. Gods are male, goddesses are female, and so it would seem that these are both different genders, and they're all, you know, the highest powerful force that there is, and that would seem quite straightforward. The lower, well, they're from voodoo sort of entities like Papa Legba, and these are below God, below an overall powerful God, but still magical beings. The Orishas are sort of seven African powers, and they're the same sort of idea, but separate entities, and they are like an overall powerful God, but they're below that. The Orishas are below that. And magical beings are basically all of these entities, so that seems quite straightforward. However, gods and goddesses aren't really that separate. Sometimes these entities are better called deities because they have more than one gender. By that I mean they may manifest in some ways as male, in some ways as female, okay? Obviously, lower in the Orishas, you can see how they have similarities. You know, they're both types of entities below a powerful god. That's how they say it. So in the seven African powers religion, you've got like a Legoa, who is an entity which opens and closes doorways and gateways to other places and can remove obstacles. And is linked with the colours red and black. And if you see him, he normally appears as a human-shaped entity, but with red and black skin, although he can appear in other ways as well. If you look at the Orishas from voodoo, you've got Papa Legba. Clearly, Papa Legba and the Legoa are linked in some way, but they are separate entities. The reason they're separate is because people have worshipped them as separate for such a long time. So it got as like an alteration, almost a creation of a different entity, okay? So from voodoo, you may have, for instance, Baron Samedi, and he's really the equivalent of death. He brings people to the afterlife and things like this. Where in, say, the seven African powers, I think with another entity, we've got Chango, and he's a symbol and power of power itself, thunder, fire, male virility, you know, help you overcome obstacles, things like that. So you've got these entities there. And I suppose we were picking a goddess. We could pick, from the Celtic belief system, we could pick Katu Border with a battle crow. You know, the enemy drops dead as she flies overhead. As a god, you could pick the Sumerian god Enki. And he's linked with magic and sorcery, but also with replenishment, okay? The symbol of replenishment, he can bring back what you've lost. He's also a symbol of a lot of financial areas in some way. You know, when you find things that have like a stick with two snakes around it, it means replenishment. It's a symbol of Enki. It means that, you know, you spend your money on something, the money comes back and you've still got what you spent it on. That's what they use it as, yeah? So you can think of them as different. However, in practice, religions at the very centre are about classification. By that I mean, if you take a good example, would be any mainstream religion. Take any mainstream religion whatsoever and remove the classification. So we'll take most of your mainstream religions are monotheistic. Straight away you've got a God. Okay, remove the classification system, you've just got an entity. Okay, which means all the things that he created, this and all that, that goes straight away because that's part of the classification system. As you work your way through, you've got your angels. Well, the angels are just beings, aren't you? They're just another being, so they're not like below God or above any God. They're just a set of beings as well. So what you've just got then is sets of different beings, you know, and the whole thing sort of collapses. But we as occultists do something quite different, because in reality, I command gods and goddesses. So although it's easy to call them gods and goddesses because people then know which ones you're talking about, in practice we're using them as servitors, magical servants. But we're doing the same with lures and orishas, and also entities you could call magical beings, which should in a way be all of them. And this means that not just could we command them, but we also use them, you know, interchangeably. By that I mean it's quite okay to combine magic from gods and goddesses, lures and orishas all at the same time. There's nothing wrong with that at all, okay? Because basically we're getting rid of a lot of the classification systems. And what we do is we command these entities. And we can command these entities because of the human power that we have, okay? We're not talking power which is flows from God or whatever, but the human power that we have and the flaws that these entities are created with allows us to command them. That's what you're really talking about, is the ability to command, which simplifies it completely. Because at that point, what you're really talking about is there's magical beings and then there's us, and that's it, okay? So are they different and the same? You can think of them as different, but in terms of occultism, they're all exactly the same. I am now going to talk about the differences between worshipping and commanding. When you worship an entity, and we're talking about magical beings, gods, goddesses, things that could also be used as servitors, what we're really doing is we're putting this entity on a pedestal. What we're doing is we are then hoping that the entity will help us, okay? So what we're doing is we're hoping that this entity will choose to help us. We're giving some of our power to this entity. It's not simply about worshipping it, it is powerful. We change the relationship to that which you would normally have. So now the entity has more power than we do. We work for it, okay? When we command an entity, it's quite different. We gain in power, okay? It's not just that the entity can help us, but we gain in power and the entity works for us, okay? So we then move up and it moves down, for want of a better phrase. You may wonder what the importance is of the distinction. Well, the distinction is that when someone worships something, it's really more like a religion, okay? When we're commanding something, although religion is occultism, what we're doing when we command is we're doing something which is just occultism, okay? There's not really religion there. What we're doing instead is we are making this entity do what we want it to do. We're turning it into a servitor or magical servant, okay? It then serves us. Now you may wonder why we can do this. Well, the reason is it's the use of the correct technique, but also our own human willpower, okay? We have the ability built into us to do these things, and it's really us as humans working to our strengths, okay? But there's also another important reason for us to command rather than worship, and that is that some of these entities, not all of these entities, but some of these entities were probably created by us, okay? By our thought, by what we want, just as magic can create many things and do different things. But some of these entities may actually have created us, okay, or being created in the same way. So what we're talking isn't a simple relationship where an entity creates us, we create them. It's different from that. What we're actually talking about is entities being created and uncreated all the time. This means that regardless of the situation, regardless of who creates what, it's not done by one entity or by maths thought. It means that entities can disappear if they cease to be interesting enough. Okay? In actual fact, worshipping an entity takes away our power. It makes us more likely to be uncreated. If we think back to when people used to say there was dog-headed men, there was many sightings of dog-headed men. Marco Polo saw dog-headed men. And all of a sudden, you know, there's no dog-headed men. And people may think, well, you know, how could this happen? Well, the reason this could happen, one reason would be because they cease to be important, And that's what we're talking about. Not don't think just about being nice. It's about being important, and that's the thing. If we remain important, then we stay around. If not, we can get erased and rubbed out. Because the basis of magic is that we can't change the fabric of reality. Okay, but we're not the only ones that can do magic. Other entities can do magic as well. Okay, so the only way we can do that is by remaining in the most important position we can. That means that humanity we have to spread out, not just as people want to do among space and spread out that way, but also different dimensions. We have to constantly expand. Okay, and basically, worshipping isn't a guarantee that you'll stay around. Okay, because then you give another entity more power, and it's not just about one entity. Don't think about as a simple classification systems like angels, demons, and us. Don't think about that. There's a massive different sorts of magical beings, uh, different dimensions that are in some way related or linked, as ours is, to theirs. And so because of this, what you have is this complex situation, like a complex web, okay, of different entities altering each other, being altered all the time. And so there really is no advantage in being one down, okay. We've done this a lot as humanity. We've done a lot of this worshipping thing, and it hasn't really worked out the way that you wanted it to. It did what we needed to do, but we need to move on to the next level. We don't need to be worshipping. We need to be commanding. Another thing is, these entities then will change your behaviour. You have to do as they tell you to do, or else it simply won't work. They put all sorts of limitations upon you, which really don't make any sense. The modern world is as much forged by breaking the rules of religion as by forming and by working to them. Okay, a lot of the things and the great breakthroughs have been done, at the time seemed against religious dogma. Now, I'm not anti-religion. What I want to say is, though, is that occultism should be separate from religion to be useful to people, so that anyone can use it. And that's also a reason why I command entities and not worship them. Okay, that's the sort of occultism that I do. I'll also move on to summoning or praying, common ground and differences. Well, a summoning is when you summon an entity to be with you right there. We're talking about an entity being right with you at that moment in time. That is a summoning. A praying is praying to an entity when it's not necessarily with you. Okay, it may choose to be, but praying, you're not really summoning them, you're just praying to them. The common ground is you don't necessarily have to have any ceremonial magic to summon something. It can be completely different. It can be very easy. A summoning can be like a spell or a prayer. It can just be said. It's about what you say. So say a prayer would be, grant, or Enki, replenishment for me, give me back all of the strength that I have lost, so it is and will be. That would be a prayer. Whereas a summoning would be to summon Enki. Okay. Now, one way of doing that would be to use a doorway entity. They're also called liminal beings, liminal deities. And these entities specialise in opening doorways to other realms. Okay. So you've got quite a few. You've got like Papa Legba, who is a voodoo entity, and he is, in the system of voodoo, he would always be used first, because without him you can't open a doorway and allow the other entities through. Okay, so you'd say something like, Papa Legba, you have the power to open the gateway to other realms, and I ask that you open the gates now, open the gates. And then you close it again, you'd say, Papa Legba, you have the power to close the realms, close the gates, close the gateway here and now, and so it is and will be, and it could do that. But you've also got Elegawa, which is from the Seven African Powers. Okay, you'd use them in a similar type of way. You also have Saint Peter, who actually, in many ways, is thought to be another idea who Papa Legba is. So Papa Legba isn't just the voodoo man, he's also Saint Peter. Okay, many people believe that. And use images of Saint Peter as well as images of Papa Legba, which is normally thought of as being an old man with a walking stick with a limp. The reason he has a limp is because one leg is in one world and one leg is in the other, and the walking stick is a staff of power which allows him to travel between the worlds. A Lego was quite different, okay? The images you see depicting a Lego normally as a man. In actual fact, you'll probably see a Lego if you summon him. And really, if you're doing any summoning, you're always summoning these entities because they can just come of their own accord. They can just come through whenever they want. And when you summon a Legoa, he's really red and black entity, and he's normally thought of as being, normally seen as being a human-shaped entity with red and black skin. Okay, that's what you're seeing, red and black skinned entity. There's also Janus as well, which is a Roman entity, which is an entity which has the ability to open gateways, doorways to other places. Yeah, you've also got Leviathan, which is the gateway to hell, basically. Leviathan was thought of at one time as being, in the medieval period, as being a great big sea monster type thing, as being like the mouth of hell itself. Okay, but some people always believe that Leviathan isn't very intelligent. It's just a force. In actual fact, when you use Leviathan, you do come to realise, I believe, that Leviathan isn't just a force. Leviathan is actually an intelligent being, just the one that has sometimes been thought of as being very large. Okay, and you may not necessarily, if you were to do any form of astral projection and you to see Leviathan and you were successful, you will not necessarily see a big sea monster. What you may see is just commonly a large dragon entity, or sometimes you'll see a man raiding and see it like that. Okay, and that is possible to get in out to hell like that. Okay, it's not even that difficult, but it can be a bit time consuming to really get where you want to be. This also brings me on to another topic, something which is very close to my heart: stacking entities in the occult. Traditionally, people always thought you can only use one or two entities at the same time, meaning that you would use one entity and then it would go back, or you would summon, get a doorway entity to bring another entity through and send them back, and you'd only use two. But in actual fact, you're only limited by how many entities you believe you can command. Okay, I have commanded many, many entities at the same time. I know this is something which is shocking to many people, because basically until I did that, people didn't do that. Nobody did it. Until I started doing it, nobody believed that you could command more than one entity or two. Okay, it was like the old thing, never raise more demons or entities than you can smite down. In actual fact, humans have incredible power to control these entities. They're very, very powerful entities, very powerful beings. And so we can command a lot of them. So don't just think one. You can do 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. You can even entities that have lots of them, you can classify them as a battalion. So if there's more than one entity, I sometimes use the 3 battalion method, where I will summon 3 battalions of these entities, which groups them. Although it depends on the entity whether I use that system or not. If you do that, you find that there will be a battalion is between 3 to 500 entities. So at most you're talking about 1,500, and then in reality it's probably a way of getting, a certain amount through, some through is what you'll get. And so this is what happens there, and you can summon many entities. I'll do this now as a way of opening a portal, okay, and then I'll shut it again. And this will show how you can even stack doorway entities. These liminal beings are very useful to stack, because you can then open a more permanent or more obvious portal. We will shut it again, but it's a way of opening a more firmer one, which means then anything which comes through you're more likely to be able to see. So I'm going to do this now so you get an idea of how you do this. Okay, I'll start by using Papa Legba, because he's always been very dependable. Well, they all have really, but I'll start with Papa Legba. It's an easy one to remember as well to start with, and that's from voodoo, and that's, like I said, that's Papa Legba. Okay, Papa Legba, you have the power to open the gateway to other realms. You have this power, Papa Legba, and I ask that you open the gateway now. Open the gates, Papa Legba, open the gates. Open the gates, help to open the gates, open the gateway. Papa Legba, use your power, open the gates to the other realm. Do this now. Janus, you have the power to open the gateway to other realms, to open portals to other beings, to other worlds, so that other beings can come through. Open the gates, Janus, open the gateway here and now. Open the gateway to the other realm. Allegoa, you have power to open the gateway. To open the gateway to other realms, to other worlds. I ask that you open the gates here. Allegoa, open the gates. Open the gates here and now. Open the gates. Saint Peter, you have the ability to open the gates of heaven. I ask that you open the gates here and now. Open the gates of heaven here. St. Peter, open the gates. Leviathan, you are hell's mouth, the mouth of hell, and I ask that you open your mouth, open the gateway to the other realm, to hell. Open the gates, Leviathan, open the gates. All entities, open the gates. The gateway is open. At this point, you will now find the gateways are open. You may find some sort of change in temperature if you perform this with me, or even just listening to it. You may find a change in temperature. It's probably gotten colder, okay? And that is a physical manifestation of the gateway being open. I haven't summoned anything through, okay? We've just opened the gateways up. I'll now show you how to close them again. Now, you don't have to use the entities in reverse order. In fact, you can mix the order up. But it is quite a nice way to do that, though, is to do it in reverse order, you know. So we'd start off with Leviathan. Now, what we've actually done is we opened the gateway generally. Some of these entities open gates to just one place. Most of them open up to many, okay? Like Leviathan and St. Peter really open the gateway to one place. One to heaven, one to hell, okay? Or places that you could see as that, or think of in that way. So what we've done is just opened up a gateway. You could summon anything through if you wanted to, you know. Not Elvis, I suppose, not possibly. But you can summon anything through you want, okay? Any of these sort of gods, goddesses, lords, orishas, magical beings, anything you can summon through at this point. But we're now going to shut the gateway. This is important. When you open a gateway, you should always shut it again. You don't really necessarily have to do that if it was heaven. If you don't mind, you know, having lots of angels around, then that'll be fine. But in reality, you're normally better shutting the gateways. Okay, so I'll do that now. I'll do it in reverse order. Leviathan, you are the mouth of hell, hell's mouth, and I ask that you shut the gates. Shut the gates to hell, here and now. Shut the gateway, Leviathan. Leviathan, shut the gates. St. Peter, you have the ability to open up the gateway to heaven, and I ask that you shut the gates now. Shut the gateway, shut the gates here and now. Allegoa, you have the power to shut the gateways, and I ask that you shut the gates. Allegoa, use your power to shut the gates here and now, so that travel to and from ceases. Janus, you have power to open and close doorways, and I ask that you shut the doorway, shut the gates to the other realm, shut the gates here and now. Papa Legba, you who have power, you who can shut the gateways to different realms, I ask that you shut the gates here and now. Papa Legba, shut the gates. Shut the gates so that all travel ceases. Shut the gates. The gateway is shut. So it is and will be. Okay, that is the end of that particular ceremony, and that's how to open and close doorways to other places, and also using more than one entity. It does show how you can stack these entities, because what we've used is to open and shut the gates. We've used Papa Legba, Janus, Allegoa, St. Peter, and Leviathan. We've used 5 different entities to open and shut the gateway. Okay, this means that if you were to call any entity through in the middle of that, you would actually have a very good chance of seeing that entity, and you could command more entities to come through and send them back again. It also illustrates the advantages of commanding. If you were to worship these entities, that means they will have a choice. They may choose not to open or shut the gateway, so they may choose to open and not shut again. Okay, and so this shows you how you have a much stronger, safer position through commanding than through worshipping. I do hope that this has helped to give you a better understanding of the occult, although it is a very big subject and it goes on and on. I hope it's given you some insight. My name's S. Rob, and thank you for listening to my lecture.